Neville Goddard, Power of Awareness, Chapter 21, Free Will. Ooh, this is going to be good. The question is often asked, what should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and its realization? You already know what he's going to say. Nothing. It is a delusion that other than assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you can do anything to aid the realization of your desire. You think that you can do something, you want to do something, but actually you can do nothing. I mean, how great is that to know righteousness, to know the law of assumption, and manifest that which you have a desire for? That's enough. I mean, that really is enough if you think about it. You're not pounding stakes on the railroad. I mean, that is a psychological adjustment over here. You don't have to take any action out here at all whatsoever. That's like a blessing. That's twice blessed. You're blessed for knowing the law of righteousness. Then you apply it. You apply the law of assumption. Righteousness is your pathway. And there's no effort besides psychological adjustment. It's an adjustment. You think that you can do something, you want to do something, but actually you can do nothing. The illusion of the free will to do is but ignorance of the law of assumption, upon which all action is based. Everything happens automatically. All that befalls you, all that is done by you, happens. Your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. Now listen to that. Your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and action to their fulfillment. That's the world becoming automatons for you. Your assumptions, conscious or unconscious, direct all thought and all action toward their fulfillment. To understand the law of assumption, to be convinced of its truth, means getting rid of all the illusions about free will to act. Free will actually means freedom to select any idea you desire. By assuming the idea already to be a fact, it is converted into reality. Beyond that, free will ends, and everything happens in harmony with the concept assumed. I can of mine own self do nothing because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. In this quotation, the Father obviously refers to God. In an earlier chapter, God is defined as I am. Since creation is finished, the Father is never in a position of saying, I will be. In other words, everything exists, and the infinite I am consciousness can speak only in the present tense. Super important point, and Neville talks about this, and I can't remember the lecture, but I think it's maybe one time that I've heard, but he says, or I think I read it, where he's talking about the main problem we have is with our tense. It's the tense. It's not. It can't be I will be. It can never be I will be. I will be is just stating I am not, literally. But the I am is the present I am now. Not my will, but thine be done. I will be is a confession that I am not. The Father's will is always I am. Until you realize that you are the Father, there is no one, until you realize that you are the Father, there's only one I am, and your infinite self is that I am. Your will is always I will be. Until you realize that you are the Father, your will is always I will be. Now we might have to back up the wheels a tiny bit, because hear what he just threw down there about will. Free will actually means, let me go back even further. To understand the law of assumption, to be convinced of its truth, means getting rid of all the illusions about free will to act. Free will actually means freedom to select any idea you desire, any idea that you put together and objectify, any idea you desire. Free will means you can choose any idea you desire. Freedom to select any idea you desire by assuming the idea already to be a fact, whatever idea it is, if you assume it to be a fact, it is converted into reality. Beyond that, free will ends and everything happens in harmony with the concept assumed. Whatever concept you assumed becomes. So, I must repeat all. In this quotation, the Father, I can mine own self do nothing. I'm repeating very, very, very important pieces here. So let's just grab a hold of the chair, dig our toes into the carpet, do whatever you must, but just hang in there because this needs and is worth repeating. Free will, remember, is the ability to choose any idea you desire. It's not about action, it's just about choice. I can mine own self do nothing because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. In this quotation, the Father obviously refers to God. In an earlier chapter, God is defined as I am. Since creation is finished, all creation is finished, the Father is never in a position of saying, I will be. In other words, everything exists, all of it, and the infinite I am consciousness can speak only in the present tense. Not my will, but thine will be done. Remember, done. I will be is a confession that I am not. The Father's will is always I am, quotes. Until you realize that you are the Father, your will is always I will be. Until you realize that you are the Father, in parentheses, there is only one I am, and your infinite self is that I am. Your will is always I will be. In the law of assumption, okay, now, why I spun the wheels backwards? Any idea of will, and whenever you hear yourself use the word at all, I will do that. I will do this. I will do that. I'll get to that. Blah, 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 blah. Anytime you use the phrase I will, understand what you're saying right there. You're literally saying, you're not saying not my will, but thine be done. You're not saying that. You're confessing I am not. I will do that is I am not that. So you're not using righteousness and you're not using the law of assumption. Righteousness being the path, law of assumption being the whole thing in general, impressing the subconscious is the law of assumption, which becomes the path of righteousness is this whole thing. Sinning is not following your desire. Righteousness is following your desire and manifesting it. When you say I will, you're negating, you're not saying I am anymore when you say I will. You're negating your power to say I am that. I am. I will just diffuses. I will is like going out here. It's a complete diffusion. In the law of assumption, your consciousness of being is the Father's will. The mere wish without this consciousness is my will. This great quotation, so little understood, is a perfect statement of the law of assumption. The quotation being, not my will, but thine be done. It is impossible to do anything. You must be in order to do. If you had a different concept of yourself, everything would be different. You are what you are, so everything is as it is. The events which you observe are determined by the concept you have of yourself. If you change your concept of yourself, the events ahead of you in time are altered, but thus altered, they form again a deterministic sequence starting from the moment of this changed concept. You are a being with powers of intervention, which enable you by a change of consciousness to alter the course of observed events, in fact, to change your future. Deny the evidence of the senses and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I got to say this. I I went to go run an errand here today at lunchtime, and I was turning a corner onto a street, and I saw a guy with a guitar on the bus stop. And he had the guitar not showing, but the strings towards his body. So I saw the back of the guitar. Having been in a band for a while and playing an instrument, I knew that was the guy with the guitar right there. So I go, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. He's got a guitar. That's great. So I keep driving. I go to the grocery store. I take a path another way to another errand stop. I get done with that errand, then I'm coming down a different street. Well, he had taken the bus, apparently, only a couple miles, maybe a mile or two, from the one stop to another stop, and was now walking down a neighborhood. If you imagine where I saw him first, there was a big square. I saw him here, and I made it two major intersections over, and was coming down a long street, which he must have taken the bus, and now he was walking on this, like a service road. We have these outer roads and then inner roads where the houses are. When I got done with my second errand, I'm now coming back to come home. He's walking down the service road on the grass by the trees, and he's playing licks. I could tell he's just working out his guitar, and I go, oh man, what a sight. This guy right here is ignoring everything his senses are telling him. He has to walk anyway. He has a desire and an object of desire. Obviously, it's playing and learning his instrument. So he's taking his valuable time. It's just like the gal on the streetcar when she blended the tears coming out of her face with the tears with the rain coming out of the sky. She then began and envisioning that it wasn't the streetcar she was on in San Francisco. She was actually coming into the Bay of Samoa, which is what I forgot before, but it is the Bay of Samoa. This guy I saw walking is basically like maybe 22 years old or 20. He was taking the object of his desire and putting the law of assumption to work for himself by ignoring the senses. Assuming to be real was that he knew how to play that instrument, because he was taking the time while walking. You gotta walk anyway. Why not use that time to attain the object of your desire and become proficient at your instrument? He was doing this in public, walking down the path, and I was dumbfounded because you don't see that often enough. I think it's a wonderful sight. Somebody ignoring what the senses are showing them and focusing on their desire. Wonderful sight. Deny the evidence of the senses and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Inasmuch as your assumption is creative and forms an atmosphere, your assumption, if it be a noble one, increase your assurance and helps you to reach a higher level of being. I'm going to repeat the sentence. Inasmuch as your assumption is creative and forms an atmosphere, your assumption, if it be a noble one, increases your assurance and helps you to reach a higher level of being. If, on the other hand, your assumption be an unlovely one, it hinders you and makes your downward way swifter. I don't even want to give voice to the negative ones, but any negative one's going to make this path faster. You're going to objectify a subjective impression quicker because it's unlovely. And that energy and feeling and emotion is probably stronger because you spent some time and invested a lot of your efforts in this realm already. So you know how to get there quicker. He's saying it's faster, it's swifter. The reason a lot of people think manifesting takes a lot of effort or a lot more time is because you've been doing the opposite. So you've been doing the opposite so long. And I don't mean opposite, you haven't been manifesting. You've been manifesting perfectly. But you've been doing the opposite, as he says here. If, on the other hand, your assumption be an unlovely one, it hinders you and makes your downward way swifter. If they've been unlovely, it's time to change them. If you want to see the positive portrayal of what your desires are, and they can be. Just as the lovely assumptions create a harmonious atmosphere, so the hard and bitter feelings create a hard and bitter atmosphere. Whatsoever things are pure, just, lovely, of good rapport, think on these things. This means to make your assumptions the highest, noblest, happiest concepts. This means to make your assumptions the highest, noblest, happiest concepts. There's no better time to start than, I always say, what's the best? Well, I learned this from somebody else, and infinite banking concept, IBC. Infinite banking concept. I highly recommend that whole thing. But the guy was an arborist who wrote that and figured that whole thing out. And he says in his book, I believe he said it, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's either 20 years ago or right now. And that's exactly is what he's saying here. There is no better time to start than now. This means to make your assumptions the highest, noblest, happiest concepts. There's no better time to start than right now. Who cares what negative ones you've already done? You're not there anymore. You're here now. You're now, here now. The present moment is always the most opportune in which to eliminate all unlovely assumptions and to concentrate only on the good. Cowboys and aliens. God doesn't care who you were. He only cares who you are. The past is, without cussing, it's a bunch of hooey. It's a bunch of nonsense. The concept of the past is even phony in itself. Because as I pointed out before, and I'll happily do it again now, here's the present, here's the now moment, which we are all in. Here's the supposed future, and here's the supposed past. Okay? Anytime you think of anything in this moment, you're projecting it out over here, and you're projecting it out over here. So if right here, you're taking a class, you're learning a subject, and you're happy you graduated, and you're looking to the future, you see the same kind of concept. You feel good about your future because you accomplished a great goal, and now you're looking towards the future, and it seems wide open. And you look at your past from that moment of celebration, and you see all the lovely times you were conquering goals. But let's say you do something in the negative, and I have a hard time even giving voice to these things, but it doesn't matter. Let's just say you were working on acquiring wealth in your self-concept, and all of a sudden, in your now, you got fired. And this Neville, the reason I bring that one up is because Neville said it happened many times. People will be working on wealth, and all of a sudden they get fired, or always an abrupt change with their profession or their career. And that was because they needed to open the doors to get to the right thing that was going to give them the wealth. So let's say if you're in the moment before the wealth arrives, and it's arriving, otherwise you wouldn't be fired. You were fired, and you're looking out at your future, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. They fired me. And actually, you wanted to be fired, or you wouldn't have been fired. All right? So you got fired. You're looking to your future from that emotional state, and you see a negative viewpoint. I'm just going to get fired again. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You look at your past, and you think all the times you didn't come up, and you failed at a test, or you failed at something, because you're feeling like a failure in your now, when in actual reality, wealth's on its way. It hasn't arrived yet. Point is, in your now, you had both a successful emotion, which you projected both directions, and then you had a very negative emotion, which you projected both directions. Those events don't exist out there. They exist only here. So in the present moment, the moment of power, you're projecting those things through a thing called a memory or a thing called desire of how it's going to be. If you're projecting a negative in your future, then you're putting desire, and you're making a negative, you're making a subjective impression with a negative circumstance in it. Then you're objectifying, making into your reality the negative future you thought was always there. It's there because you're doing this with the with the unlovely things. It's hard to do this example without giving voice to these negatives, and I don't like giving them voice. We should only stay optimistic, like he just said. Whatever's lovely, good rapport, think on those things. So, to the idea, these don't exist. Again, if you're thinking on things of good rapport and you think on those things, your now is constantly filled with those. So then when you get an inspiration, when you get a desire, when you get an urge, they're always lovely because that's where you keep your focus. Lovely desire, subconscious impression, objectification. The present moment is always the most opportune in which to eliminate all unlovely assumptions and to concentrate only on the good. As well as yourself, claim for others their divine inheritance. Man. See only their good and the good in them. Stir the highest in others to confidence and self-assertion by your sincere assumption of their good, and you will be their prophet and their healer. For an inevitable fulfillment awaits all sustained assumptions. Man, oh man, that's powerful stuff right there, as well as yourself. Claim for others their divine inheritance. Are you supposed to do this for yourself and then just look back at everybody else and go, I don't know what your guys' problem is? No. You want to have friends, don't you? You want to have associates to grow old with, don't you? You want to go on the same vacations, don't you? You want to have the same wealthy vacations to the same exotic foreign lands. So you want to have people there. So why wouldn't you claim for others their divine inheritance? You want to be with somebody. You're not doing this just for you. See only their good and the good in them. I challenge you. Do you know the people you've slighted? Doesn't matter who they are or what situation, if you have or if you haven't, doesn't matter. See a picture of them in a group setting that you're in and they're in and start giving them the benefit of that divine inheritance. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Stir the highest in others to confidence and self-assertion by your sincere assumption of their good, and you will be their prophet and their healer. For an inevitable fulfillment awaits all sustained assumptions. You win by assumption what you can never win by force. Assumptions happen here. Law of assumption. Sinning means missing that, but we're winning that. So now we got righteousness on our side, so we're taking the path. You win by assumption what you will never win by force. Force, you can't push will upon others. You just can't. Haven't we all tried this already? Haven't we got this one down yet? You can't win by pushing your will on anybody. This motion, like all motion, exercises an influence on the surrounding substance, causing it to take the shape of, echo, and reflect the assumption. A change of fortune is a new direction and outlook, merely a change in arrangement of the same mind substance, consciousness. If you would change your life, you must begin at the very source with your own basic concept of self. Outer change, becoming part of organizations, political bodies, religious bodies, is not enough. That's right here. That's out there. The cause goes deeper. The essential change must take place in yourself, in your own concept of self. Your own concept of self, right there. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. For the reality of your assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact and will clothe itself in flesh if you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I will repeat and clean that sentence. You must, remember he's using the word must. Your ears must get bigger. Dumbo yourself. Is that Dumbo the elephant? I think it was. You must assume that you are what you want to be and continue therein. For the reality of your assumption has its being in complete independence of objective fact. Complete independence of objective fact. And will clothe itself in flesh if you persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you know that assumptions, if persisted in, harden into facts, then events which seem to the uninitiated mere accidents will be understood by you to be the logical and inevitable effects of your assumption. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. You create nothing, but your assumption determines what portion of creation you will experience. Oh man, what a powerful last paragraph. The important thing to bear in mind is that you have infinite free will in choosing your assumptions. Infinite free will in choosing your assumptions. Remember, any idea or desire, infinite free will in choosing your assumptions. An assumption is bringing this conscious and subconscious together. Giving birth to the sun, the objectivity of your reality, of your 3D experience. You have infinite choice, infinite free will in choosing your assumptions, but no power to determine conditions and events. You can create nothing, but your assumption determines what portion of creation you will experience. The assumption has the reign over all of this. Is it important to learn this? Yes, absolutely. What am I going to invest with my time, thoughts, money? Where am I going to invest my time, thoughts, and money that I get this down, because this really rules everything? Because whatever I'm doing out here has boundaries, has limitations. This is where willpower is exerted. But what I'm doing in here, the path of righteousness, infinite. Infinite. No limitation. Free Will, chapter 21, Power of Awareness. Oh my goodness. Each chapter blows away the previous. I thought the previous chapter, righteousness, was most amazing. But free will, I'll repeat one more quote. I can of mine own self do nothing, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. The Father sent me. There's the Father. He sent me. I can of mine own self do nothing. If I just me, I can do nothing, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which has sent me. Where would the desire come from? But Him. Where's the urge come from? But Him. Where's all these different ideas of righteousness come from? But Him. Remember, doesn't matter your self-concept. Whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent, He is no respecter of persons. Each self-concept gets its own desire and urges, whatever the color of those self-concepts are. Something has to jolt them into this path of righteousness. Even if the bank robber wants to rob a bank, he gets the desire to scheme, whatever it is, because in his world, that's the limit. But the righteousness is how he got there. That's the lesson at work. That's why it's good not to, it's an idea, it's a good idea not to be in such judgment. We don't want robbers. Okay, excuse me. We have laws that take care of this stuff, judges and courts and all this business, but we want to be understanding that our brother, the bank robber, has walls around his self-concept. He's still learning the law of righteousness, the same as we are learning the law of righteousness. He's learning it in his way, we're learning it in our way. Neither is better or worse. And if you remember from previous chapter, we can lift him up. We can imagine lovingly for our brother bank robber and seeing him as not robbing banks anymore. Who's going to step up and do that? Oh, okay, let's say his name's whatever. His name's ABC. Oh, I can see ABC. He's already, he just came out of jail and he's doing so much better. He found an opportunity in his life to do something good and he loves it. He's not only doing the thing that only he knows how to do so good, but he's got a car to drive. He's got someone cooking his own food. He's got a place to stay. He is so happy. He's doing so much better. Matter of fact, he's telling me this right now, and I was just talking to him and I hugged him. Oh, and I'm listening to his voice right now. I see his smile. Am I my brother's keeper? He is going to get the same desire in his framework as you're going to get for your framework. But in imagining lovingly for my brother, I lift the tide all throughout. All of us get lifted by me lifting just one person with that one prayer. Who else needs a prayer? Just somebody who needs to pass a test? Okay, what does that prayer look like? Oh yeah, I see. I just heard from my niece. She's actually taking this very, very difficult sommelier level 4 test. Very, very trying time for her. So I see her celebrating with some very rare wine. I'm having fun with it here. But the idea is you get the drift. You just literally see them celebrating by calling you and telling you They passed the test. They've got the better opportunity. They're doing something only they love and know how to do. And it's the greatest news you've ever heard. And you're celebrating with them. You're hugging them next time you see them. And you see that hug. You feel that hug inside of you. It's that simple. That's your prayer. Each prayer you send out makes not just them fulfill the objective. They become the objective because you sent it out. You became convinced in yourself. So then the new reality you assume, the law of assumption that you assume is the reality where they are that new self. Once you persuaded yourself of that prayer that they told you, your brother bank robber went on, he got scared straight and went on the straight and narrow, thankfully. It was wonderful news. You gave up this self that you were to share the law of assumption. You convinced yourself that he went on the straight and narrow. He gave up the bank robbing and now he's living a fulfilled life doing something he loves to do. You became that new person, sacrificing yourself here. You sacrificed yourself. You, by saying the prayer, sacrificed the one you were that believed he was there. And you became this one that supports the change of him into here, where he's got the new job opportunity, he's got the new car, someone's cooking his food, place to stay. He's loving life. He's working half as hard, getting twice as much money. You become this person. You do it again when you get the phone call from your niece saying she passed level 4 sommelier's exam. You're over here. You sacrifice this person. To want to hear someone say that they passed the exam, you have to sacrifice this person because this person has to persuade itself that it is the new person who is sharing reality with the new person they are. Are you willing to sacrifice yourself? Are you willing to put yourself at that level of giving? You're sacrificing yourself. You're not going to be able to escape the fact that that's a fact. You're sacrificing the self you were that believed they were something before. When they become something new, you are new. That's self-persuasion. Oh, what a great chapter. Power of Awareness, chapter 21, Free Will. We'll see you in the next chapter.